All right, so before we start the video, I want to give a quick disclaimer. If you absolutely do not like your job and you only see your job as a means to an end, an exchange for your time for a paycheck, then this video is absolutely not for you. Please skip on to the next one. You won't like some points that I'll make, and that's completely fine. This video is for people who see their jobs as careers. They enjoy what they're doing and they genuinely want to learn and grow and advance in their careers. If you do see a job as a career, something that you enjoy doing, keep watching and be sure to keep an open mind. Some of the points I'll make may be a little bit controversial, but I think it's definitely still worth making. Let's get into it, shall we? All right, so before the pandemic, remote work wasn't really the norm. You had to be some sort of special employee for your company to even consider letting you work fully remotely. I remember relocating to Wisconsin for my first internship and going into the office every single day and doing the same thing the following summer in Minnesota. Occasionally, you'd get to work from home on Fridays or even take some half days, but if your company was in the same city you were located in, you were almost required to be in the office every single day of the week. Then 2020 hit and the pandemic changed everything for everyone overnight.
Remote work was thrust upon us basically by the pandemic. Before the pandemic, remote work was pretty rare, so about 5% of days. We were forced to work from home. All managers and professionals were basically fully remote for much of 2020. And then it turned out it's worked really well.
Companies that never allowed remote work suddenly had their entire workforce operating from home. What was once considered out of reach suddenly became the new standard. This transition coincided perfectly with when I started my full-time job as a software engineer at Microsoft. Like most people at that time, I started completely remote. I got my laptop and computer equipment shipped to me, but I didn't really get the full welcome experience. I didn't even hear from my manager until about 1 p.m. on my first day, so as you can imagine, I was panicking a lot. Fast forward a year and I was fully settled into remote work, and to be honest, it was pretty freaking amazing. I was living in the central time zone while working based on Pacific time, so there was a 2-hour difference that worked in my favor. My meetings didn't start until at least 11 a.m. my time, which gave me the entire morning to do my own thing. Out of courtesy, my team tried not to schedule meetings past 5 p.m. my time, so my evenings were also completely free to do what I wanted to. I had so much time outside work and I used it to invest in my personal projects, planning out my YouTube channel, and pursuing personal interests. The benefits of remote work were obvious. I saved a ton of money by living in a state with a lower cost of living. I also didn't have to commute. I got to eat my home-cooked food instead of buying lunch every day. My schedule was also incredibly flexible since theoretically I could get my work done from anywhere at the time that I wanted to do it. I could also attend personal appointments without taking time off, handle errands during lunch breaks, and even travel while working. The work-life balance felt perfect. Now, that was all great, and I thought remote work was definitely for me. But like most things in life, you don't know what you're missing until you experience the alternative. You see, the part of remote work that often gets overlooked is that in some way, you become detached from the company. Your only real association with the organization becomes the hours you log, the projects you complete, and the paycheck you receive in return. Like I said in the beginning, this arrangement works fine if you don't particularly like your job and only see it as a means to an end. But it's not sustainable, especially if you want to build a meaningful and a successful career. You'll see what I mean in a second. So about a year after the pandemic restrictions were lifted, I moved to Washington and started going into the office regularly. Not every day, maybe 2 to 3 times a week. This was when my entire perspective shifted. I became much closer to the people I had worked with for over a year, mainly because we were now sharing the same physical space. I met new people from sister teams and heard about all the work that they were doing. Some were people I got introduced to, others I met during casual conversations, and others recognized me from the videos I made, and suddenly, I was building relationships with people in an organic way. Every meeting you have when you're remote typically has a specific agenda and an expected outcome. When all the conversations you have with coworkers are always structured this way, it becomes hard to build genuine connections with your colleagues. You have to be incredibly intentional about finding time to connect with people, and it can feel forced or awkward. There's also this extra layer of friction where every interaction has to be planned and scheduled. When you're in person, it's a lot easier for those to happen organically as hallway or coffee break conversations. Another thing I noticed while going into the office regularly is the speed and productivity that I got. When my work was simple and straightforward, I could manage everything remotely. But that changes as you start to take on more complex work and need guidance, or when you switch teams or want to advance in your career. When you're remote, to get assistance from someone, you have to message them first, then coordinate schedules to find a time that works for the both of you, which might be later in the day or sometimes days in the future. When you finally do schedule some time with them, you're sharing your screen, but there might be a lag because your development environment is consuming all your resources. Then they want to explain something to you using a virtual whiteboard, but you're not quite following their explanations because virtual whiteboards suck. No one knows how to draw using a mouse, and it's not their fault. It's just how things are. Now, compare that to being in person. You can walk up to someone's desk with your laptop and ask if they have a minute and immediately shorten that back and forth setup time. If they need to explain something complex, there's usually a whiteboard right beside them in the office. If they need to make changes to your code or show you how something is done directly, your laptop is right there. Yes, there are tools and solutions that can help with remote collaboration, but the friction still exists. What might have been resolved in a 10-minute face-to-face conversation can easily take a day or multiple days when working remotely. There's also the visibility you get from being in the office and people seeing you work. It's a lot easier to get promoted when your higher ups see you often and have conversations with you about the work that you're doing and the impact that you're making. Now, I want to circle back to relationships because this is huge for career development. It's significantly easier to build meaningful relationships when you interact with people in unstructured, natural settings. Think about meeting someone new at your team's happy hour or the conversations that happen during lunch breaks. To give some context, I started my Netflix career as a fully remote employee, and after a couple of months, I went into the office for an on-site, and in just a couple of days, I had met so many people from sister teams and had great conversations with them. I had conversations with them about their background, what they were working on, and better understood the work they were doing and how my work played into that. Since then, I decided to start going into the office where I live, and just by doing that, I've made even more meaningful relationships with directors, managers, and more. I've built genuine mentorship relationships with people I met over lunch in the office. These were people I didn't know and they didn't know me either, but those casual, unplanned encounters created connections that would have never happened if I was always fully remote. These are often the most important relationships you can build in your career. That's how you develop strong professional networks and you build friendships that last well beyond working together, where even years after you no longer work together, you're still meeting up a few times a year, attending each other's live events, and much more. Yes, these are all pictures from my time with people who I worked with at Microsoft. We haven't worked together in a few years, but we still meet up often. Don't get me wrong, working from the office definitely comes with its own challenges. There's a strict schedule you have to maintain. You lose the flexibility you had working from home, where you could handle personal tasks throughout the day or adjust your hours as needed. Then there's the commute. At some point in time when I was working at Microsoft, I had to take a shuttle bus to get to campus. That was a 40-minute commute each way. Driving can also be stressful and take up a lot of mental energy, especially in heavy traffic. You're also tempted to spend money on food and coffee if your company doesn't provide those for you. You might have to also pay for parking, depending on where you work. There's also the cost of gas, the wear and tear on your car, and a whole list of other expenses and inconveniences. I hear you on all those points. They're completely valid. But I have personally learned and come to the realization that these are the prices that we pay for being part of society. It's very similar to how inconvenience is the price we pay for community. The trade-off for building meaningful relationships and advancing your career is accepting these daily inconveniences as part of the journey. For me, I've learned to accept them for what they are. You can also view them as investments rather than obstacles. I ultimately think the sweet spot is a hybrid approach though. A few days working from the office provides flexibility and uninterrupted focus, while a couple of days in the office can give you the time to create connections and collaborations needed to grow a career in a meaningful way. It can also accelerate your career growth. Going into your office a few days a week also breaks up the monotony of working from the same space every single day. It provides variety and helps separate work life from home life in a way that pure remote work sometimes often struggles to achieve. Now, I know not everyone has the luxury of choosing, and depending on what stage you are in your life, remote work might be what works best for you, depending on if you have kids, a family, and other responsibilities. Now, if you do have a choice though, I do encourage you to ask yourself what opportunities you might be missing. Are there relationships that you could be building? Could faster collaboration help you deliver better work? Or are there learning opportunities that could only come from spontaneous interactions that you're missing out on? The goal isn't to convince you that remote work is wrong, but to rather help you think critically about what trade-offs you're making and whether they align with your career goals. That's it for this one. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like and subscribe and check out umacodes.com for more of my resources, coaching, and much more. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you in the next video. Peace.
Juice. Please don't get it confused. All that I want to do is hold and vibes, drink and ice, yeah, dream or life, carry a dream or life, yeah, you know what it is, you know what I mean, you know what it is when you're with me, hold and vibes, carry a drink, my eyes.